All right, I think I'm live. I think we're live. I think we're going. What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Benji-Sales live chat. It's good to be back. It's good to see everybody. We've got some great topics this week, let me tell you guys. It's actually, I'm going a little earlier this week, right? A lot of times my chats come towards the end of the week, but we had so much news over the last few days that I was like, I want to get one in now, and who knows, maybe if something crazy happens at Tokyo Game Show in the next day or two, maybe I'll even do another one on Friday. I'm not positive there will be a second stream on Friday, so don't count on it, but depending on how news is over the next day and a half or so, may even do a second stream this week because there was so much news over the weekend, and then the first couple days of this week. Figured we need to get going now. We got to do some talking about all these topics right now. So there's a couple really big things we can talk about. First of all, of course, there is yesterday's news with the Nintendo Direct. There was a whole bunch of announcements there. The biggest one, of course, being we finally have a name for the new Zelda and a launch date. It's The Legend of Zelda. I believe it's Tears of the Kingdom. I'm seeing a ton of debate. Is this Tears or Tears? I'm assuming it's Tears of the Kingdom. That's what makes the most sense. But anyways, we got a name. I think it's a great name, to be honest with you. I really, really, really like the name. And we got a launch date, May 12th. So May 12th, Zelda is coming. So that was the big highlight. There was a couple other pretty big announcements there, of course. We got a new... Fire Emblem. Fire Emblem Engage is coming out on January 20th, 2023. Looking really good. That should be really big. Fire Emblem Three Houses was the best-selling game ever in the franchise. As a lot of franchises have been on Switch, so we got that to look forward to. Pikmin 4 got announced as coming next year. No date, but it's coming next year. Octopath Traveler 2 got announced. So a whole bunch of goodness out of the Direct. Then, of course, there was the State of Play, which the key obvious highlight there. I thought there was actually some pretty good stuff at this State of Play. It actually was a better State of Play than I was expecting. But the highlight, of course, was God of War Ragnarok. I mean, that was one of the best video game trailers I've ever seen in my life. Like, literally, it is one of the best trailers I've ever seen. I think it actually is even better than any of the trailers for God of War 2018. And I remember thinking that had some of the best trailers I'd seen. But I think Ragnarok's trailer here even up to that. It's one of the best trailers I've ever seen for a video game. So Ragnarok clearly was the highlight, but there was some other really cool stuff there too. I think Stellar Blade looks cool. Tekken 8 looks awesome. And some other pretty cool stuff there. Then we got some news in regards to Cyberpunk we can talk about if you guys want to, in CD Projekt Red. One more note off the top. We got, of course, someone's going to be asking about Splatoon 3 sales. They're utterly insane. We found out this game sold 3.45 million copies in just Japan in its first 3 days, not globally, just in Japan. Y'all, that's the biggest launch in the entire history of the video game industry in Japan, and that's crazy. So I'm sure there's going to be some, questions about that and so much more. Bonnie Ross leaving 343 and the whole shakeups there. There's a ton we can talk about. It's going to be a good day. So for anyone, if this is your first time ever as part of my live chat, the way it works, it's a stream, it's a show, it's 100% driven by you, your comments, your questions. You just drop them down into chat, and we break down the latest video game industry news. There's going to be two ways to do that. First of all, of course, there's the free method. Type a question, whatever you want, pops into chat, and I get to as many free questions as I possibly can. I'm going to stream for about an hour and a half today. The way to guarantee your question to get answered is going to be through the super chat option. You just type a super chat, donation, whatever you want. It alerts me, and I get to super chats immediately. Don't feel pressured or obligated to donate in super chat, though. It's just a way to help support me and the channel, and also guarantee that we get to your question. But you can ask about anything, comment about anything. It doesn't have to be questions. It can be your opinions, things that you liked at State of Play, things you liked at Nintendo Direct, whatever, guys. We're just here to talk about the video game industry. All right, I think we're good. That was kind of the highlights for some of the topics. No real housekeeping notes, so I think we're good to go, guys. I think we're good to go. Start filling that chat up now. If you're in chat and you have any questions or comments, start doing it now, because I can rarely get to all of them. So the earlier you get that question in chat, the more likely it is that we're going to get to it today. All right, so Big Low 25 kicking us off the top. I'm really wondering what Microsoft/Xbox has to do to get more Japanese support to stop them from skipping the platform, specifically in regards to Square Enix, but also other Japanese publishers besides XGP. Well, I've got an answer for you right here, Bigelow, and here's the key. Xbox fans need to buy these games. And if you have an option for Game Pass, you need to play these games on Game Pass. That's the reality. No publisher is going to skip a platform if they're going to sell a ton of games on it. It's just not going to happen. If these Japanese publishers think that they're going to sell a lot of copies of a game on Xbox, they're going to put their game on Xbox. You don't really see Capcom skipping Xbox, right? It's because Capcom games sell on there. Now, those games are more... Capcom's a Japanese developer and publisher, but their games definitely have more of a Western appeal than someone I would say like Square Enix, for example, where it's really JRPG heavy. Something like Resident Evil's always been huge in the West for a super long time, or Street Fighter. Capcom, besides Street Fighter V, which was a scenario where basically Sony funded that game to happen from what we understand, the vast majority of Capcom games, very, very rare that it's going to skip Xbox. You've seen companies like Square Enix and, Atlas and some of these other publishers that have skipped Xbox. It's because, I'm just going to be honest with you, their games haven't traditionally sold on the platform. Any time that we get evidence of it, there's ginormous gaps in sales. Now, there are some... I would say it's improving. Now, is it 100% fixed? No, right? It's not a situation where you see every Square Enix game coming out on Xbox, right? Even the ones that Sony hasn't necessarily paid for exclusivity on, it seems there are still a few that are skipping, right? We know Final Fantasy, the reason that's skipping Xbox, Sony paid for it. That's not just Square Enix out of the goodness of their hearts to Sony giving them an exclusive. That was clearly paid for. But like I said, you're still seeing some of these more smaller or mid-range JRPGs still skipping Xbox. If you want to guarantee Xbox gamers, if you want these games on your platform, there are a lot coming up that are still on Xbox. So yes, there's a few skipping. Persona is right around the corner. If you want more Persona on Xbox, you guys got to go out and buy Persona 5. Or if you're not going to buy it, it is on Game Pass. Play this game on Game Pass and get those Game Pass numbers really high. Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core is coming at the end of this year. It's going to be on Xbox. Buy that game, right? Diofield Chronicle, that's coming up. That's from Square Enix. Buy the game. Xbox fans really need to put their money where their mouth is on these JRPGs. And it's not impossible, guys. Tales of Arise, I think, is a really good example of a game that sold well on Xbox that's a JRPG. That game performed actually very well on Xbox. And I think you're going to continue to see more Tales games hitting Xbox because of that game's performance. So that's where it is, guys. It's one thing to complain, and I get the complaints. I'm not telling you that Xbox gamers shouldn't be upset that some of these JRPGs are skipping the platform. But you guys got to send the message that you will support it. At the end of the day, this is all a business. It's all about financials. That's the end-all, be-all of all of video games. I love video games. They're an art form. They're entertainment. But video games exist so these companies can make money. So Xbox fans, you got to put your money where your mouth is. Buy Diofield Chronicle if it's good. I'm not telling you to buy bad games. If they're good and you want JRPGs, buy Diofield Chronicle. Buy Final Fantasy Crisis Core. Buy Persona 5 or play that game on Game Pass and get it really high in the Game Pass most played charts. These are the keys. If Xbox fans keep doing that sort of stuff, you're going to see less and less and less games skip the platform because they're going to see that there's a financial reason to put their games on the platform. Just like Capcom, right? You're going to see almost zero exclusives out of Capcom for PlayStation. Maybe a very rare exception, but Capcom ain't skipping Xbox because they know they're going to make a lot of money there. So that's the key, guys. That's the key. But I will tell you, it does seem to be improving. Last gen there was, tons of JRPGs skipped. I just listed, 3 JRPGs right there that are coming to the platform in the next, the next 4 or 5 months. There's 3 pretty big JRPGs. So it's improving. It's not 100% fixed. Phil and Xbox are clearly doing some work to get the support improved. Now the gamers need to really follow through on that. Okay, Cameron here. Actually, we have a super chat. Let me hit that super chat really quick. Matt Duffy dropping a super chat. Thank you so much, Matt Duffy, man. Always so supportive. Always so awesome in chat. Thank you, man. I very much appreciate it. Dropping a 2 super chat. Benji, these chats are the highlight of my week. Well, Matt, I'm not joking. These are one of the highlights of my week, too. I love doing these chats. I am very fortunate in that, I talk about it all the time, so I'm not going to drone on about it. I don't have a huge audience on YouTube, right? I'm nowhere near like these really big YouTubers, but I have 2 things that I really love about these live chats. One, it's almost universally positive. Occasionally we get like, a troll being mean in the chat, but for the vast majority, since it's not like super big and gigantic, you don't get as many trolls, right? It's people that are mostly really, really nice. Most of my chat, very little fighting amongst you guys. Most people good vibes. So I love that. That makes the chat really fun to do. And B, I have a really smart chat. These chats wouldn't be good if you guys were asking bad questions, right? If it was just filled with really bad questions, no one would want to watch the stream. You guys are super smart. I have a super educated audience. So that also makes the chats really fun because you guys ask great questions, not just about my answers. It's about the great informative questions and things that you guys note and hear all the time that I learn from you guys during these chats. So thank you, Matt. Love doing these chats. They're easily one of the highlights of my week too, and I love that you guys love doing them too. Benji here with a 5. Thank you so much, Benji. Always so supportive again. Another awesome, regular, great dude here. Benji with a 5. Benji, thoughts on Ubisoft confusing pricing strategy? Yeah, we haven't talked about Assassin's Creed yet. Some games like Mirage will be cheaper, $50, but others like Skull and Bones will be at $70. Yeah, so Ubisoft came out and said that they are basically now starting to go down that $70 price range for, games models. I think we're going to see more and more and more companies do that. I think you're going to see even Microsoft and Xbox. They haven't yet. So far, there's been 0 Xbox games at 70, but I really think that's coming too. I kind of feel like, and this isn't inside info, so nobody quote this like Benji's saying this. This is just me theorizing. I kind of feel like Starfield's going to be that first $70 Xbox game, because that's the big one that they've been waiting on for a lot of people. I think they think a lot of people will buy that game even at $70, and that will be a really big experimental tool. It would be less, you would have less data if you launched, I would say, like Redfall or Forza at $70. Don't get me wrong, those are both going to, at $70 there would still be some people that buy them. We know Microsoft's really focused on Game Pass, but some people still buy these games. Starfield, I think, though, would give them a lot of data and feedback if it's at $70, how a really big, highly anticipated game could do at that pricing. So I think you're going to see more and more publishers move this way to $70. I think it's inevitable for most of these companies. Once the precedent got set, it wasn't going to go back, right? Once you saw $70 come out of Sony, and you've even seen Activision do Call of Duty and stuff at $70, and you've even seen EA do some of the sports games at the current gen at $70, it kind of was inevitable. Once it started, it wasn't going to go back. So I do love, though, actually, that Mirage is $50. I get that it can be kind of confusing, but I've been an advocate for a long time that it'd be nice to have a little more variety in pricing models. Not everything has to be the exact same price, I feel like. If the game's budget isn't crazy high, maybe you could sell some more units if you bring that price down a little bit. So, we'll have to see how it all plays out, Benji. Maybe the $50 will throw some people off. Maybe the $70 will throw some people off. But I'm actually a fan of this. I hope we see more of this gen. Like Miles Morales. Look at how Miles Morales performed at a cheaper price tag. Because that game, the Ultimate Edition, which came with Spidey, was more. But if I'm remembering right, Miles Morales at launch was $49.99 as well. And we saw that perform great. I mean, Spider-Man Miles Morales sold amazing at that price point. Maybe it would have even sold amazing at $60. But I think that was a really smart move there too. So I kind of hope, especially now that we're seeing more and more $70 games, we also start to see some of these $50 ones too. I think that could be really good for the market, to be honest with you. But we'll have to see. It could get confusing for the consumer, I agree. Anthony Johnson dropping a 5 super chat. Thank you so much, Anthony. Really appreciate that super chat. From your experience with social media metrics, which social media metric is best at projecting a game's success? Oh, this is really fun. I like talking about metrics and that kind of stuff. YouTube engagement, Twitter engagement, or something else? Anthony, here's the thing. This is what I always say about Twitter metrics because I really pay close attention to them. You guys see me tweet about them. It's in my bio that, Twitter or, social media metrics are one of the things that I follow. What I always say about social media metrics, they are a useful tool to find out what's getting buzz. They're not a one-to-one ratio on what's going to actually sell. So I think it's very useful for seeing what's being discussed, right? And what's getting attention. A game could get 10 million views on a trailer and still not necessarily sell amazing. Now, it does mean if you're doing 10 million YouTube views, there is interest, right? There's no way you get to that high of a number of views and just no one's interested in the game. It's just not an exact ratio for sales. We've seen some examples of games with really good trailer views that didn't do great in sales. We've seen some vice versa where the YouTube trailer views were okay, but it actually sold really, really well. The things that I pay most attention to are YouTube trailer views, particularly very, very high ones. I would say it's pretty rare, not unheard of, but it's pretty rare that a game does big YouTube views. I'm not saying like 1 million, 2 million. I'm saying these games that start to do like 8, 9, 10 plus million trailer views, that is very rare that doesn't result in at least a big launch. Very rare. It's a pretty big exception that you get an extremely high, and you're even seeing this with movies. Again, it's not universal. Don't always assume it's going to work out this way. But even in movies, typically a crazy high view count on trailers is going to mean a pretty big box office opening weekend. Kind of the same thing here. So I would say in terms of just if you're going to use it as pure data, I would say YouTube trailer views are actually more useful than Twitter. For Twitter, what is very useful is engagement, not discussion. So what's very useful about Twitter, extremely high likes, extremely high retweets, trending often on Twitter. These sorts of things are very useful. What I find to be, I don't want to say useless, but very not useful are Twitter conversations. If you're talking about data, if you're just talking about data, sales, that sort of thing, the vast majority of the discussion on Twitter, it's pretty rare it's reflective. I talked about this, I think, on the last chat, and if I didn't do it publicly, I did it in a private Discord. I can't really remember where I was talking about it. But one thing I was talking about was how one thing, if you read Twitter, you would think that, Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Valhalla and Origins are hated because they're, these big overbloated games and no one wants to play all that. Why isn't it like old Assassin's Creed? Like, seriously, you see tons of this conversation on Twitter. The reality is these games are selling better. Like, that's not something we can debate. It's a fact, right? Origins, Valhalla, and Odyssey completely turned around the direction that franchise was headed in sales. That doesn't happen unless people like these games. Now, I think that it's very, very useful. I love what they're doing with Mirage, where it's a throwback, right? Where those people that do feel disenfranchised by current Assassin's Creed, you might be able to get some of them back with Mirage. So I'm not saying that people that feel that way don't have a right to feel that way. What I'm saying is it's not that useful of a data point. What's way more useful of a data point is what's actually happening with the business, right? If you just read Twitter, you think, oh my God, we got to stop making these big giant RPG games like Valhalla. We got to go straight back to like Assassin's Creed Unity style. And the sales tell you a completely different story. Completely. You look at Unity, you look at Syndicate, that franchise was headed down. The RPGs brought them back up. I love what Ubisoft is doing now, where it seems like they're going to do both. You're going to get the big RPGs, that's what Assassin's Creed Red is, and you're also going to get the smaller ones like Mirage. I think that's genius. But that's what I'm saying with Twitter. With Twitter, pay very close attention to really high likes, like crazy high likes. If something's getting 100,000 likes, I mean, that's a useful metric. Look at really high, retweets, that sort of thing. Pay less attention to conversations. They can be useful, but that's going to be way more just noise. I would say that's more of a noise and less of a signal. You get what I'm saying? Okay. Long answer there, but I get asked about a lot. YouTube trailer view counts, especially very high ones, Twitter likes, retweets, not necessarily comments and discussion. Okay. Super chats are cleared. Let's go back to your free questions. Thank you, everyone that donated in the super chats. Cameron Swear here. Bruh, Splatoon 3 sales. Borderline incomprehensible. Yeah, it is. I couldn't even believe the number when I saw it. LOL, probably looking at a 6 to 7 million global launch. How crazy is that? It's a whole nother level of crazy. That's likely going to be even more than God of War for reference. Probably, yes. I believe Splatoon 3 will have a bigger global launch than God of War. Specifically because Japan. There's just no way God of War can make that gap up. You don't want to say it's impossible. It's going to be close to impossible, I think, for God of War. Even God of War Ragnarok to open so big because Japan is so outlandishly big. Like, it's so ridiculous of a number. To put this in perspective, you know, one of the guys that I really love, that I'm friends with, Welfare, he had tweeted out, to give you perspective on how utterly absurd this Splatoon number is, think about how enormous of an impact Halo 3 was back in the day, right? Halo 3 for a long time was like the biggest launch in the US and like that there was for a big AAA shooter flagship game. That game was, I believe, if I remember correct, like 3.3 million copies in the United States in 12 days. Guys, this was like 3.45 million in 3 days. This was a bigger cultural impact in Japan launch than Halo was in the United States. That is crazy, dude. Crazy. So the sales numbers for Splatoon are legitimately mind-blowing. The only way that God of War Ragnarok will even have a chance of outdoing this is if it is quite literally an utter record breaker in not just the US but also Europe. It's going to have crazy sales. Guys, The Last of Us Part 2, which is the current biggest launch ever for Sony worldwide, not in one market, worldwide, it was 4 million in 3 days. Splatoon did 500,000 less than that in Japan alone, counting 0 US sales and 0 Europe sales. That is crazy. So God of War would not have to only beat The Last of Us Part 2's record to launch bigger than Splatoon globally. It would have to utterly annihilate The Last of Us Part 2's opening. That's how crazy outlandish the Japanese number is. There's no doubt in my mind, I think God of War Ragnarok is going to open bigger in the West. If we're just talking US and Europe, if I had to make a prediction here, I think God of War is bigger launch in those markets. It's just that Japan is so outrageously big that it's like, holy F, America and Europe would have to be also outlandishly bigger than The Last of Us Part 2 to make that sort of gap up. So we'll see if that can happen. Right now, I agree it's unlikely. Right now, Splatoon probably has a bigger global launch just because Japan is complete and utter madness for that number. It's crazy. It's crazy. We had talked about this like three or 4 weeks ago. Someone asked me, and I was like, yeah, I'm not really feeling the Splatoon hype. You know, I had originally expected the day that this was announced that it was going to be a complete juggernaut in sales. And then I was kind of like, it feels like it's not at the kind of hype that I thought it would be leading up to launch. But then it was like the last 2 weeks before launch, it skyrocketed. And I was back to being like, yeah, this is going to be a behemoth. But this is still even way bigger than I expected. This is the biggest launch in Japan, and it's not particularly close. It completely annihilated Pokemon Black and White and annihilated Animal Crossing. It's crazy. This is... I almost laughed when I saw the number because it was so outlandishly ginormous. I mean, it's crazy. It's going to do well in the U.S. also, by the way. U.S. launch is going to be good. It's not going to be Japan good, though. I mean, that's a crazy number. Crazy. All right. Mr. Vinsanity15. Hey, Benji, is it just me, or besides Spider-Man 2, there is nothing announced for 2023 from Sony? Do they need to announce anything, or you think they might go into New Year without doing so? This is a big debate in the PlayStation community right now, and I was actually having a conversation with somebody just this morning on it. Here's what I'll say. There's a lot of wonder if there's a big PlayStation showcase this year, or just like this state of play that we just saw. I will say if there is no big showcase this year, right? If we don't get one in the next month or two, Mr. Vinsanity outside of PSVR 2, because we know that's coming early in the year. So there's going to be some exclusives for that. We already know Horizon. We already know it's confirmed for early 2023. Outside of that, right, like traditional big first-party AAA Sony games, if you don't get a showcase in the next month or two, I think it points to in the first half of the year, there's probably not one from Sony. Probably not. Or if so, it might be one of the service games, right? It might be like that Last of Us multiplayer game or something else. Because if you completely skip a showcase this year, that means you would essentially have to announce and market a big AAA game in less than 6 months. That's not impossible, but it is extraordinarily rare. That would mean you'd have to announce this game in like January and market it for like 3 or 4 months to have it out, before you hit the halfway point of this year. Nintendo kind of does that occasionally, not even always. Look at something like Zelda, for example, or Pikmin, which is next year. They'll even announce games far out. Bayonetta, Prime 4, we have lots of examples. But they're the one publisher that kind of will do a pretty crazy turnaround to announce. You almost never see this from Sony, and you rarely see it from Xbox. Usually they announce with at least 7-8 months, before launch, and sometimes often a year or more, 2 years even. So if you don't get a showcase this year, very doubtful there's a big flagship AAA single player, the games that people love from Sony in the first 6 months of the year. Very, very, very unlikely outside of PSVR 2. So it could be that unless you're a big VR fan, the first half of next year could be pretty light if you're a fan of PlayStation exclusives. Spider-Man 2 is scheduled for next year. As of now, we haven't heard it's delayed, but I'm guessing that's pretty late in the year. So my hope is that they have a showcase soon in the next month or two and they announce something for the first half of next year, but could be unless you're looking for VR, you might be waiting for the second half of the year to get a big game from Sony. Really might be, because otherwise the announcement marketing cycle has to be extremely short. And then Mr. Vinsanity also says, by the way, what kind of mic and camera do you use? So I use a Yeti Blue mic. That's my mic, is a Yeti Blue. And then I use a Logitech 4K webcam. Those are what I use. I haven't gotten like a big crazy expensive camera because I don't do enough YouTube content to really justify it. Like I know some people use like legitimate cameras, right, as their video feed. I would maybe do something like that if I did more content, but only doing like, one stream a week, I don't really need a $600 camera, I feel like. So just a 4K Logitech webcam and a Yeti Blue mic. Benji. Several new games recently are cross-gen well into 2023 as Assassin's Creed Mirage or Like a Dragon Ishin. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Will cross-gen still be important then in 2023? Here's what I can say. If you notice, a lot of the cross-gen games in 2023 are games that were originally supposed to come out sooner. Assassin's Creed Mirage is one of them. I can tell you at one point they wanted that to be this year, and it's not this year anymore. Same thing with like Hogwarts Legacy. That was not supposed to be a 2023 game. So like I've been saying, are you still going to get some cross-gen in next year? For sure. I would say most cross-gen games next year are games that were originally targeting to be 2022 or 2021 even. Some of these games I think next year were originally going to be like 2021 games even. So I would say that will be the majority of your cross-gen stuff that you see next year, but not all. As we've noted on here, expect Japan to be cross-gen for a long time because the PlayStation 5 install base is nowhere near supportive. Really, for Japan specifically, like if you're a Japanese dev, it really makes sense to still release your games on PS4. So expect Japan to be cross-gen for quite a while on most of their games. Not everything, but a lot of it to be cross-gen, especially because most of them are still supporting the Switch anyways, which is, weaker hardware than PS4 even. So if you're going to make a Switch port, you might as well make a PS4 port as well because you're already going to be targeting a lower spec anyways. So expect Japan to be cross-gen for quite some time. Out of the West, you will start to see a lot more current-gen only games next year. In fact, we already know Microsoft alone has 3. Starfield, Forza, and Redfall are all current-gen only games. That's 3 from just Microsoft. So expect to see a lot of current gen game only games start hitting next year. I have heard that Jedi Survivor is current gen only, but I can't outright confirm that, guys. So if it does end up being cross gen, apologies, but I have heard whispers that Jedi Survivor is not cross gen. It is a current gen only title. So, you know, there's going to start to be a lot of current gen only games next year for sure. You're still going to see cross gen, like I've been saying on here for a while. It's not going to be one of those things where there's zero cross gen games next year, but you will start to really feel that shift to current gen only next year. I mean, Tekken, right? They haven't said it's 2023, but it's more than likely, 2023. Tekken is announced as current gen only. A lot of games are going to start moving that way. I think we had a super chat hit. Let me hit that super chat. We did. We had 2 super chats. Thank you so much, guys. Timmer with a 2 super chat here. Thank you, Timmer. Every single chat I don't think you ever miss. No question today. Just wanted to show my support. Well, thank you, buddy. I don't think you've ever missed a live chat, or if so, it was a very long time ago. So thank you so much, dude. I really appreciate that support. Highlander001 with a 10 super chat. Thank you so much. Great to see you, Highlander. Also always in chat. Benji, hope you're having a great day. My daughter loves Disney Dream Valley. Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. And also the second part. With the head of 343 leaving, yeah, this is a big topic, and lack of output from Microsoft, is there a leadership problem at their studios? This is 2 fascinating things. So first, let's quickly touch on Disney Dreamlight Valley, because check this out, dudes. Remember how I told you, we've had this conversation on chat a ton. If you guys have watched me over the years, you know that one of the things that we've discussed, and I've even outright said many times, is that Disney was really underutilizing their big IP on console and PC, right? You would see stuff like this on mobile, but they had almost nothing, unless it was Marvel or Star Wars. They had almost nothing on consoles or PC for people that like the traditional Disney IP, right? The Mickey Mouse, the Frozen, the Moana, the Peter Pan, the Pinocchio, right? The things that we associate with typical Disney. There was almost none of it on console or PC in the last gen or so. Look, check out Dreamlight Valley, dude. I told you guys I was going to be keeping an eye on this. Listen to these Game Pass numbers, right? So on console now, this is up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's in the top 7 most popular games on Game Pass in the US, only behind Halo, like the one it's right below, Halo Infinite. This game is almost doing Halo Infinite numbers on console, which, as we know, that PC is struggling with Halo Infinite, but on console, it's still pretty lively. Now let's look at PC Game Pass. PC Game Pass, this game is now Disney Dreamlight Valley in the 1, 2, 3, 4. It's number 5. It's in the top 5 most popular games on PC Game Pass. I'm not surprised by this. I've been telling you guys there is definitely demand to see these franchises. They're just not getting used. I'm not surprised at all to see that this looks like it's doing pretty darn well. And guys, this is just for early access, right? The actual official launch with free-to-play isn't until next year. This is just paying to get early access into the game. Or if you're a Game Pass member, you get it with your Game Pass subscription. So clearly this is doing very, very well, and I'm not surprised in the slightest. This is going to do really well for Disney. So great to see that your daughter loves it, and clearly a lot of people are loving it too. Now, let's talk about 343 and Microsoft's output, because this is a spicy topic, and there's a lot of stuff we could talk about with it. So, the head of 343 leaving, Bonnie Ross. First of all, let's be very clear here. Thoughts are with her and her family. She said part of the reason she's leaving early is because of a family health issue. That sounds concerning, so we don't know, right? There's no additional information here, but I really hope the best for her and her family. I hope everybody's healthy and that whatever the health issue is, that it's overcome and everyone is great. So firstly, let me just say that. Secondly, one thing I've noticed is that her statement doesn't outright say that the health issue is the reason she's leaving. If you notice, Bonnie says that's the reason she's leaving earlier. She said her original goal was to stay on through the winter update, which isn't until November, I believe. And she was saying that she now has to leave early because of this family health issue. So it sounds like, and I don't know this, I'm just going off her statement, it sounds like Bonnie was leaving no matter what. We don't know if the later time leaving period also had to do with the health issue, but it seems like she was leaving no matter what, and this health issue has expedited her leaving the company. So no matter what was happening, it sounds like Bonnie was leaving this year, towards the very end of the year. Now they have split her role into 3 different positions. So it sounds like this is a big leadership shakeup, and I have a feeling part of the things, we've talked about this on the channel, Phil and Microsoft, no matter what, and I have a lot of people that I actually know at 343, and whenever I say know, I don't mean that like we're best buddies, but a lot of people from 343 follow me on Twitter, I follow them, they're very nice, we interact, so it was very clear, though, that Microsoft had to do something to make some big changes at the company. Because I think even people at 343 would tell you, I don't think there's anyone there that thinks that this live service component has just gone great, right? I really doubt it. I doubt if you ask anyone there from the lowest, and whenever I say low, this isn't an insult. I'm just saying like on the hierarchy. If you go down to someone, testing the game, or you go and testers are important, don't take this as like an insult. I'm not meaning it like that at all. I'm talking about the decision makers. If you go down from someone just doing the testing and you go all the way up to Bonnie Ross herself and the top most, people at 343, I'm sure all of them would tell you, yeah, this has not gone according to plan. All right. Clearly it hasn't gone according to plan. So big changes needed to happen. I really respect Bonnie Ross. She's done a lot for Halo over the years. I think maybe her stepping away might be good for the brand. And I don't mean that as an insult that Bonnie's incapable of it, to be clear. I just mean sometimes you need fresh eyes on something. And Bonnie's been doing Halo for a very long time, right? It's not like Bonnie Ross was on Halo for, a year or two and is leaving. She's been doing this for a very, very long time. And we're seeing a lot of other changes, right? We saw recently, I had tweeted about this. One thing that I was really impressed with whenever they delayed this new Halo season, I did not like that, but I was really impressed with the new lead of live service. He sounded very frustrated, and I actually really respected that, because you don't want someone to just come in whenever there's a big delay and just sound like all PR speak. If you go back and watch that video, the guy, I can't remember his name, I apologize, who's now the head of live service, you could hear the frustration in his voice. You could hear him being like, yeah, this isn't okay. Like, we have to do better. Like, you could hear that. That's a good sign to me. You want someone to be that passionate with their mistakes and be like, okay, we got to fix this. So there's a lot of, I think, actually encouraging signs for Halo. This isn't going to turn around immediately, so people should not expect 3 months from now Halo Infinite's in an amazing spot and it's just incredible and it's the best game you've ever played. All these kinds of leadership things and changes and shifts, and we've seen now the head of the engine leaving the company. That was just revealed today. The guy that was the lead architect of the Slipspace engine has left. All of these sorts of changes and moves and leadership shakeups, these are all going to take time to see payoff, right? Don't think, like I said, 3 months from now, Halo Infinite's not going to be amazing. This is going to be the kind of thing that takes, 6 months at minimum before you even start to see changes. And that's just start to. You won't really see these impacts for, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 months, a year, right? It takes a long time to move things. So the hope would be that all of these changes are really going to be good for Halo in the long term. But you guys do need to, I know it's annoying, but Halo fans do need to be a little bit patient for the next 6, 7, 8 months in terms of huge changes, because that is going to take time as you do all of these shakeups to see that pan out. But I will say that I don't want to give 343 like carte blanche and say, oh, that's definitely going to be amazing. But I feel like a lot of change was needed at 343, and these are encouraging signs that they are willing to make these changes. So hopefully we see that pay off. Now, in regards to your second part of your question, like, is this going to be, is it a leadership problem at Microsoft in general? I would say not necessarily in terms of like recent game output, because a lot of people do not understand how bad the pandemic screwed the industry. I've been talking about this for the last like 2 years. People still do not understand how much this impacted game development in a massive way. So here's the thing, again, just like with 343, can you just give Microsoft a flat out excuse and say, hey, it's okay that you guys went basically all of 2022, an entire year without a big flagship exclusive? You've got Pentiment coming in at the end of the year, and I expect that to be a really cool game, to be honest with you, but I believe it's $20. It's not a AAA game. It's not, it's not the stuff that people expect. That's cool. I want to see more stuff like Pentiment, but you want to see stuff like Pentiment and Starfield, right? You want both to be happening at the same time. You can't let Microsoft off the hook completely and just say, hey, it's okay to essentially skip a year of your platform not having a AAA exclusive from your first party. Phil Spencer himself would tell you that. The reason I know he would tell you that is because he's essentially tweeted as much. If you go back and read his tweet, like right after they delayed Starfield and Redfall, he basically said, we know we have to do better. And Phil himself will tell you, it's not okay, really, to go an entire year without a flagship exclusive. You need actually multiple in a year, to be honest with you, let alone one. So it's not okay, but one thing people need to keep in mind, pandemic did screw the industry. You're seeing that through the numerous delays that are still happening. So keep that in mind. Don't let them off the hook. I would say, though, that I don't think specifically it's a leadership problem right now. I think it's more of they have to juggle these studios and figure out how they're going to run these giant businesses. I think there's some argument that can be made from rumblings through reporting and then just, stuff you hear rumbling around. This is going to sound weird, but Microsoft might need to be a little bit more firm with their developers. That's a weird thing because usually publishers are overbearing. And I know Microsoft's more than a publisher. They own these studios, but a lot of the time what you hear is that these leadership is too controlling. I will tell you a lot of the rumblings is that Microsoft is maybe even a little too hands off. They are very lenient with these companies. I'm just being honest with you in a lot of ways. And they kind of let them do their own thing. And that's great for having those studios keep their culture, right? If you're buying an established studio, let's say like Obsidian, you want them not just for their talent, but for the culture that they have, right? The way they're able to make these really cool RPGs and the culture vibe there. There could be an argument, though, that they're maybe actually a little too hands-off, and that sometimes that makes projects scope out a little weird. Maybe Phil and stuff needs to be a little more firm. I don't know. Phil and the leadership there is going to know a lot more than me. They're way more hands-on every single day with this stuff. I'm just telling you some of the rumblings. Could be they need to step in a little more and be a little more firm on some stuff. Not everything. You never want these studios to be completely controlled and just, the hammer down from up top demanding you do everything. But maybe they do need to go a little more, right? Just a little more and stepping in a little bit more and being a little more firm on some of this stuff. But we'll have to see. It is complex right now. JCat with a super chat. Thank you so much, JCat. It's great to see you. Thank you so much for helping mod the channel. Thanks for being amazing, JCat, with a peach emoji. Great to see you, JCat. Thank you for the super chat. You do not have to do that. I really appreciate all your help and everything you do for the channel, JCat. You're amazing. Kellegrim saying, cool shirt. Thank you, Kellegrim. Rocking the Kirby. You know what's crazy? Kirby and the Forgotten Land was the first Kirby game I have ever beaten in my entire life. And now I'm a big Kirby fan. I loved that game. So I saw the Kirby shirt and I was like, dude, I am now a Kirby fan. I got to get the Kirby shirt. So I'm liking it for sure. Thanks, Kellegrim. Great to see you too, buddy. And thanks for that super chat. All right, super chats are cleared. Thank you, everyone, for all the super chats. Let's get into some more free questions. We still got time, so don't worry. If you have a free question, I am not stopping the stream yet. We're still going for a little while, so at least 30 minutes. So you got time. Eddie Brock. Hello there, Benji. That state of play was really good. I actually thought it was pretty good, too, to be honest. But I also had very low expectations. But it got me wondering, is there going to be a big PlayStation showcase coming soon? Yeah, we've talked about this. If so, wouldn't it make the state of play redundant? Here's what I will say, Eddie. I think it's probably very unlikely now that you get a September showcase. And that surprises me. Because if you guys have been watching my channel, I've been saying all year when people ask me, they've been asking me all year, when's the showcase? When's the showcase? When's the showcase? And I've been saying all year, it's going to probably be September because that's when they've been having showcases in recent years. So I just assumed, hey, if past is precedent, probably a showcase in September. I would say after this state of play, if God of War wasn't there, I would have said very likely that they could still have one this month because it was mostly Japanese focused and it was mostly not giant games. I would say the only game there that was like legit huge outside of their, God of War was Tekken. Outside of that, if I'm trying to think, I mean, there's some other stuff I thought that was actually very cool. Stellar Blade, I think, super cool. I think that Koei Tecmo Team Ninja RPG Ronin or something like that, I think that looks cool too. But it wasn't like, your crazy AAA franchise announcements, right? These were like some new IPs and stuff like that. So if God of War would have been a no-show, I would have been like, okay, I think they could still have one here in the next couple weeks that's a showcase. But that God of War trailer was so big, so extremely epic, that if you were going to have a showcase in the next 2 weeks, I would think you would have saved that for that. I would have thought you would have put that in your showcase. So I will say this state of play makes me think it's very unlikely now that you get a September showcase. I would say don't rule out one, though, very late in the year because Sony did used to have that thing. What was it called for PlayStation fans? I can't remember the name of it now. You guys know what I'm talking about, though, where they announced The Last of Us Part 2, actually. What was that called? Just trying to find it right now. PlayStation Experience, right? That used to be in December. And they would make some pretty big announcements there. That's where The Last of Us Part 2 was announced. So clearly Sony's not 100% against having a super late showing for some announcements. They've done it before. So I would say this isn't impossible now that you're going to get a November or December showcase. Maybe they do something like that. But I would say it's not a lock by any means. And I would say September is probably off the table now. I would say you're probably not getting one this month now, which is interesting. Like I said, if Sony don't do a showcase this year, if there's zero showcase at all, if we hit January and they did not do a showcase, it seems very unlikely there's a big AAA flagship Sony game launching in the first 6 months of next year, besides VR. Seems unlikely. So if they have something coming in that window, you would gotta think they gotta announce it very soon. And you would think they'd do that at a showcase, but you never know. Maybe not. Maybe they'll just announce it on their own. Randy Norman. Benji, what games do you think might get delayed again? Ooh, okay, so announced games that might get delayed. I've got one key one in mind. Also, is it good for the video game industry to have game releases on top of game releases, or is it bad because some games will get overlooked? It's a mix, okay? So let's go first. What games might get delayed again? I would say out of what's announced with a street date right now, to me, the one that looks the most likely by far is Callisto Protocol. We already know because of Glenn's tweet, which we talked about last chat. We already know because Glenn Schofield's tweet that they're crunching like crazy. He was talking about how they're working 6 to 7 days a week, how they're working crazy hours. That's in September. If you're crunching this far out, this hard, that game doesn't come out until December, I think, right? Obviously, you want to go gold 30 days or so before that. So even all the way till late November, I can't remember the exact date, but let's just say mid-November, you've got to work on this game. They were crunching as of, at least early September. I mean, you're crunching that hard and the game's not that far away. I don't know, man. That's a pretty big red flag that Callisto Protocol might not make this year. I hate to say it because I want it to be this year. But Callisto Protocol right now is the game that's just screaming to me out of any of them with a date, hey, I'm getting delayed. Don't lock it. It sure seems like the candidate, though. So keep your eyes on Callisto. I think that might get delayed till next year. Now, the second part, is it good for a lot of video game releases or is it bad? It's good to have a lot of releases, but it does get dangerous when there's too many, right? we have ample evidence you can launch 2 or 3 big games in a month for the industry, and mostly everyone's fine, right? 2 or 3 big games a month, that's totally fine. Where I think it starts to get a little dangerous is once you start hitting like, and we're talking like big games, not like, AA or games that aren't expected to sell 10 million copies or whatever. You could always have those sprinkled in there. But I would say 2, 3 big games a month, that's actually healthy, right? You want what is unhealthy is what has happened this past summer and late spring, where there's almost nothing coming out. So you just keep seeing Elden Ring and Lego Star Wars just over and over and over and over again being your top 2 in NPD, right? You don't want that. No game should be the same top 2 to 3 games in NPD for like 5 months in a row. That should not be happening. Games can have amazing legs and still shouldn't be the exact same games at 1 or 2 every single month. There should be a lot more variety going in there. So 2 or 3 big games a month, great. It's a great thing for the industry. Once you start hitting like 5, 6 crazy kind of stuff that it looks like early next year might be, right? It's kind of looking like those first 3 to 4 months of 2023 might be utterly insanity because of all the delays now releasing. That gets a little more dangerous because there is only so much money to go around per month, right? People get paid every 1 or 2 weeks. People have a lot of other expenses. If you're having, 2 or 3 huge games drop in per week, potentially, then it gets a little dangerous. We've seen before games get overshadowed by launching too close to another big giant game. So it's dangerous if there's too many, but a few big releases is good. We actually want to see that. So, I think early next year, though, we're going to have to see how this plays out. Some people are going to have to shift around a little bit and be very smart about where they date their stuff. I think we just had a super chat hit. If so, let me hit that. Sorry, guys. I'm getting beard hairs in the nose again. I know it's super gross and annoying, but my beard hairs keep curling up and like tickling my nose. Gotta trim the old mustache. All right, we had 2 super chats. Highlander001 with a 2. Thank you, Highlander. That's your second one. Your game of the year, God of War Ragnarok or Elden Ring? Well, here is what I will say, Highlander. Don't know until I play God of War, but I had it pretty firmly in my mind before this trailer. There was no chance God of War could beat Elden Ring for me. Elden Ring, I've said it before, it's not like kind of my game of the year. It is so far and away my game of the year. There's nothing even close. And I've played a lot of games this year. It hasn't been the heaviest year, but there's been some games I've loved. I loved Horizon Forbidden West. I just beat The Last of Us Part 1, and I think that's incredible. Obviously, it's a remake, so if you've played it before, it's not going to necessarily blow your hair back in terms of story and stuff the same way as your first time playing a game, but I still thought incredible experience. I really liked Pokemon Legends Arceus this year. There's been a lot I liked. Immortality, I loved. But Elden Ring was like so far ahead, it was like, I was basically already set. I was like, there's not even a chance that a game's unseating this for me. It's Elden Ring. That Ragnarok trailer was so good that now I'm like, dang, maybe it could happen. Now, to be clear, this is not a lock for me by any means. Of course, I've got to play the game first. And even if it's as incredible as that trailer, I still don't know for sure if it will pass Elden Ring for me, because Elden Ring is one of my favorite games of all time now. It's my favorite From Software game, unseating Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3. Those were my 2 previous favorites. Elden Ring is my favorite From Software game. But, dude, I don't know. That trailer was incredible. Like, wow. Everything I'd seen for Ragnarok up until this trailer, I thought it looked good. But I was on the board of other people thinking that this does look very similar to 2018. Now, I wasn't one of those people that was calling it DLC or like, this doesn't look like a sequel at all. It just looks like it should be DLC for the game. I was never on that boat because I was like, this is clearly going to be a huge game. But it was like everything I was seeing was like so similar to 2018 that I was like, maybe this is going to be a good sequel, but not like, something that's like blows you away because it will be so similar to the game before it. This trailer, though, the scope was crazy. You saw all kinds of different looking areas, right? It wasn't just the same snowy type setting that we'd seen with most of the previous Ragnarok footage. You saw a ton of different stuff, underwater stuff and like crazy sky stuff. I don't want to spoil anything if you don't want to be spoiled, but what looked like being up in like the stars and crazy stuff. Like, scope looked huge. We saw lots of different characters and stuff. I mean, it was incredible. So I would say right now it's still going to be hard to beat Elden Ring, but if Ragnarok's as good as that trailer, it might give it a run for its money. It really might happen. That was an incredible trailer. A second super chat here from Frostbite / dropping a 20. Frostbite, that is very generous. Thank you, Frostbite. Very much appreciate that. Thank you for always being so supportive. That's a very generous super chat. I'm currently in Berlin, Germany. Oh, sick. On vacation for the next 2 weeks. Oh, dude, hope you have a blast. So wasn't able to make last week's show. Oh, dude, enjoy your vacation. No need to drop in on the Benji stream when you're vacationing in Germany. I'm jealous. And can only stay for a quick hello. No question this week. Just here to show my support. Keep up the awesome streams. Frostbite, that is incredibly generous. 20 without even a question. Just, hey, Frostbite, you enjoy your vacation. If you're still here seeing this, have a blast. Live it up in Germany for us. I hope you have an amazing time. I've never been to Europe at all. I've never been to Europe, but I hear Germany's pretty amazing. I know some people that have been and they loved it. So have a blast. Have a blast, Frostbite. Thank you. That's very, very kind. All right. Super chats are cleared. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Back to your free questions. Miles Morales here. Benji boy, do you think it is fair to say there's multiple unannounced Marvel games currently in development? Yes, because we've had some of them leaked. Is it fair to assume that there's more beyond... Okay, so you're saying beyond the leaked ones. Beyond Black Panther, Iron Man, Wolverine, Spider-Man 2, World War II Cap games. Ooh, more than that? That is a lot. And there's also Midnight Suns, right? On top of that list, too. Black Panther and Iron Man aren't officially announced yet. So that would count as 2 that they haven't even been able to show yet. Miles, I would say if there's more Marvel than that, I really don't think it's much. Because that is already a lot of games, right? It's already Black Panther, Iron Man, Wolverine, Spider-Man 2, the Skydance Media, World War II Cap games, and Midnight Suns. That's 6 Marvel games on the way. I would say there might be 1, maybe 2 more, but not a lot. I would say 1 or 2 more at most that are currently in development. Obviously, we'll see more games than this over time, but if we're talking like right now, currently in development, you know, for console and PC, not mobile stuff, 1 or 2 more max, I think. Because some of these aren't even officially announced yet. So that means they're very early in production as well. So 1 or 2 more maybe at max. I don't think it's like there's 5 more. I'd be surprised about that because that's already a lot of games. Oh, this is a big topic. I'm not surprised to see this question. This is a big one. Benji, are you surprised Octopath Traveler 2 is not coming to Xbox? I'll be honest, yes. Could this be a sign Game Pass performance was disappointing for Square Enix? Could be. One thing I noticed, because you guys know I watch these charts every single day. Like literally, I daily look at the Game Pass charts, Xbox Most Played charts, really most of the charts I can. I would do it for Sony too, but they have no way of seeing it, which is unfortunate. I wish there was a way to see like, they don't have Game Pass, so you couldn't look at that, but you know, you could see like, they have their new subscription service, and I know you can filter that by like, I don't know. I think like best selling or most down. I don't know. But they don't have the direct just Game Pass most popular equivalent. And they also don't show you like Xbox. It's easy. You can just look. What's the top 50 most played games on the service right now or on the platform? Can't do that with Sony. I'd be love to check those charts, but they just don't exist. I would say that I watch these charts every day. I never saw Octopath Traveler 1 once it came out on Xbox go high on the Xbox Most Played list. And I also saw it never rank high on the most popular on Game Pass list as well. So this was back to that JRPG discussion we had right at the beginning of the stream. The very first question, guys, I didn't see Octopath get much support on Xbox. Didn't see a lot of people support that. So, am I surprised that it's skipping Xbox? Yes, because the first one still was on Xbox. So I would think no matter what, Phil would have tried to ensure that the sequel's there, considering the first game was there. So it is a surprise. I am surprised. But am I like dumbfounded because I didn't see any evidence, guys? I look at every data point I can. I didn't see any evidence that Octopath did big numbers on Game Pass. You never saw Square Enix say that happened. You never saw it high up on Xbox Most Played, and you never saw it high up on Xbox Game Pass lists. So, could be that that was disappointing for Square Enix. Could be. I don't want to say this is a lot, guys. Could be that's the reason, though. Could be. I would still not rule out that this comes to Xbox. It might just be later. Maybe they're waiting for another Game Pass check, right? Maybe in order to go back on the platform, they're saying, hey, if you want Octopath 2 on your platform, you need to pay us a Game Pass deal, and maybe Microsoft doesn't want to pay a Game Pass deal right now. So maybe that's part of it, and Square Enix is like, okay, well, if we're not going to get the Game Pass money up front, then we're just going to skip the platform for now. Could be. Yoda Soda. So Ubisoft confirmed to Axios that there's no Assassin's Creed 1 remake currently in development. Don't you think it's a missed opportunity? Yeah, I think a lot of people would buy it. Will it happen in the future? Also, Axios have said developers behind For Honor are developing an Assassin's Creed multiplayer project. When do you think that will be announced and released? Okay, two parts. So, first of all, am I surprised there's no Assassin's Creed 1 remake? For anyone that missed this, there was a rumor going around. I think it was that it was going to be part of a season pass or something for Mirage or something weird like that. They shot it down. They said there is no Assassin's Creed 1 remake in development. Is it a missed opportunity? Yes, because I think a lot of people would buy actually it. A lot of Assassin's Creed fans would be into a remake. That's a pretty old game now, right? That was Xbox 360. So, it wouldn't be like, like even like the way that The Last of Us remake was, where it was like, honestly, the remake is impressive, but it was a PS4 game, so it was one gen ago. Assassin's Creed 1's 360 and PS3, so that would be a sizable upgrade on a remake. I think it actually probably does happen at some point. I wouldn't be surprised, dude, if at some point they remake all the early ones, the Assassin's Creed 1 and the Ezio games. I know they did that collection, but I wouldn't be surprised if at some point they remake all of those. But, not happening now. Somewhat of a bummer, but I would say that doesn't mean it's never going to happen. Now, the multiplayer is probably pretty far away. If it was any time close, I think they would have probably announced it, considering they gave us like the whole Assassin's Creed slate coming up. We found out about like at least 4 games. Mirage, Jade, codename Red, and codenamed Hex. So, we know of at least 4. If it was soon, because trust me, Hex is far away. I think from what I'm hearing, Red might be 2024. So Hex is going to be even later than that, 2025 probably, I think. They would have probably announced it, so it's probably pretty far away. I would say at least it could be out by the time Hex is out, but I think it must be so early in development that they didn't even want to announce it because it's so conceptual. So don't expect that, I would say, for at least, 3 years probably. It's probably pretty far away. Drift23, is it possible that PlayStation is facing a problem currently with content? Yes. Is it possible they don't have enough games ready to be shown for a big showcase? Yes, very possible. If so, what's the solution? Buy more devs? It's just like what I was talking about with Xbox in terms of pandemic. Like, do you think they have enough teams to deliver 2 first-party exclusives each year? Yes, without a pandemic. Or is that too much to ask for since developers need a lot of time? So, Drift, I think it's absolutely possible. It's why you've seen no showcase. But it goes back to the exact same thing I was talking about with why Xbox is also in such an issue putting games out right now. The pandemic screwed game development. Some of this you guys have heard publicly. Some of the horror stories I've heard behind the scenes. I mean, guys, there was times that a lot of these developers essentially screeched to a halt and were getting almost nothing done. I will tell you, it was very harmful to games early in development, and work from home still continues to be that problem. You're not going to hear anyone hardly talk about this online publicly with you guys because there's such a push for work from home right now. And to be clear, I want to say that working from home does need to be an option at a lot of these studios. I have had multiple developers, some in fairly high positions, tell me that work from home has been hugely detrimental to the beginning of a project. That seems to be where there are the most issues, is games that are very early in development, where people need to be prototyping like crazy, bouncing ideas off each other in person, that sort of thing, that just everyone in a room together, bouncing ideas, quick prototype, hey, dude, look what I just did, walk over to me and see this. That sort of environment has been hugely disrupted by work from home. Again, that doesn't mean I'm telling you that all studios now should not have work from home and everyone needs to go back to the office. No, I still think it is very important that these companies offer work from home and offer a flexible, lifestyle for their employees, right? I think that's very good. I think that's a good thing. I'm just telling you guys that as consumers, you need to be prepared for a lot of games right now until this all gets figured out, because this is still a fairly new thing. It's still only been going on for a couple of years to the degree we've seen it. You guys need to be prepared for lots of delays and lots of games, especially new IPs early in development, to take a very long time. It has been a huge impact on especially early projects. That's why you saw this gap. Do you remember right when the pandemic first hit and work from home, there was a lot of games that kind of got delays, but they got delayed by like 3 or 4 months or whatever, or 5 months, as they were games that were almost done and they were polishing those games up. And that was easier to pivot to work from home, to do a polishing phase, than it was literally building a game from the very beginning. You're just starting. You saw that big gap. There was like, okay, all these games got like a 5 or 6 month gap. They came out. And then all of a sudden there was a big gap, and that continues to happen. We're still seeing a lot of delays and a lot of where are the Xbox games and why hasn't Sony shown more of their first party games. It's because these are the games now that were earlier in development and they hit huge delays internally. Some games I know caught 2-year delays. So, dude, it's big impact. So, again, work from home needs to happen, all of that stuff, but it's going to take a while for this to all get figured out. All right. And for Sony, the reason they might not have a showcase, we don't know, but might not. It could be they just don't have enough games ready to show, right? They still had a pretty good year this year, getting Ragnarok out, getting Horizon out. Those were supposed to be last year, though. And, so they still had a pretty solid year, but it looks like early next year could be a little rough for them. I think they'll probably recover in the back half of the year with Spider-Man 2 and stuff, but the first half might be pretty barren. Make sure there's no missed super chats. I don't think so. Nope. All right. Casual Gamer. Hi, so that Disney Plus Marvel showcase was pretty underwhelming. I agree. I was not impressed at all. It had a lot of mobile titles, and the showcase was pretty short. Do you think they will take feedback and return with a bigger showcase in 2024? First of all, I thought Blessing did a great job hosting it, so shout out to Blessing, shout out to Kind of Funny. I thought he did a great job. None of this should be put on Blessing. He did great for what he had to work with. But yes, I believe that the content was very lackluster. Once I saw it was only 20 minutes, I had said I was talking to somebody and I saw that the time was 20 minutes and I was like, oh, Jedi Survivor's not going to be here. And they were like, well, you can still fit a lot in 20 minutes. And I was like, nope, Jedi Survivor's not going to be here. Because the reason I felt very confident you were going to see Jedi Survivors, I think the next time they show that game is going to be a blowout. And I think they want a chunk of time, not like 2 minutes. I think they're going to want like 5 or 10 minutes to show you what that game really is. So it was very lacking. The Skydance media announcement was also extremely underwhelming. I hope the game itself is good. I'll be honest, I'm disappointed it's World War II. We have 20 trillion World War II games. I don't want to play like any World War II games for years. But at least it's a Marvel World War II game, so it will be a lot different than your typical World War II game. But I'm just so tired of the setting, man. I'm so over World War II. I was disappointed to hear the setting, but again, I'm going to give it a chance. I hope it's good. But you saw basically nothing. It was like a tiny CG teaser, a lot of mobile stuff. It was a bad show in my opinion. Pacing was good, but the content was pretty bad. And you guys know me. I try to be a positive guy. But I thought it was a pretty bad show, yeah. Batman Forever, do you think other studios under PlayStation umbrella will work on Marvel games? No. Or do you think Insomniac will be the only studio doing Marvel? I think it's just Insomniac. Well, they partner with a second-party studio on Marvel. Honestly, I don't know that any of their other teams want to make Marvel. Like, the reason Spider-Man happened was because, like, Insomniac wanted to make it. Like, they wanted to make Spider-Man. Like, they, like, straight up were, like, telling Marvel, let us do a Spider-Man game. Like, that came from them. Like, they weren't tasked with it, right? It wasn't one of those things that Marvel was like, hey, Insomniac, you need to make us, or Sony was like, they came down on Insomniac and were like, you are going to make a Spider-Man game. It's actually the opposite. Insomniac was like, we want to make Spider-Man. Give us Spider-Man. This was like the same question I had where someone asked me if we're going to see a Star Wars or Marvel game from Xbox. Maybe if the studio wants to do it. I don't know that there's any other studio right now at Sony that's just like itching to make Marvel. Bend is making a new IP. Naughty Dog, we don't really know what they're making. We know there's the multiplayer game, but what Neil Druckmann's making next, he has started his next game. We don't know if that's going to be a new IP, if it's going to be a The Last of Us Part 3. We know that they have made an outline for Part 3. They know the story idea for what that game will be. Part 3, I think, definitely happens at some point, but we don't know if it's that or a new IP next. Santa Monica's making a new IP, which is confirmed. They said it was a new IP, plus God of War. Like, I just don't know if there's anyone else really wanting to make Marvel. Insomniac wanted to make Marvel. So I would say I think it's pretty unlikely unless one of their teams reaches out to Sony and is like, hey, let us make a Marvel game. Otherwise, I don't think it happens. I think it's just Insomniac. I will say I think Insomniac's in with Marvel for the long term, though. Like, I think you'll see other stuff from Insomniac. I don't think they're just going to become a Marvel studio, but I don't think they're going to drop Marvel anytime soon. They're going to keep making Spider-Man. If Wolverine's successful, they might make Wolverine 2 or a straight-up X-Men game. Like, I think Insomniac is going to be a long-term Marvel, like, partnering with Marvel studio. Other stuff, too, but Marvel as well. Randy Norman, Benji, I had one more question about Project Eve. Yeah, I think this looks rad, dude. Stellar Blade now. Is Project Eve the first we have seen a game announced as a multi-platform title that eventually became exclusive? This game was announced for Xbox. I know people might say Deathloop or Starfield, but those games' platforms were never announced, unlike Project Eve. I want to say it's not unheard of, but it is very rare. Now, Randy, off the top of my head, can I think of an example? No. But I want to say I have seen this before. Man, there's one that's like, I can't remember. There's one in my head where I'm like, dude, because I want to say this happened with PlayStation before. I want to say that there was a game that was announced multi-plat and then went exclusive to PlayStation before. Not recently. This was a while back, but I cannot remember what it was. Cannot remember. So I don't want to go all out and say that this has never happened because part of me just feels like it has before, but it's very, very rare. Very rare that a game gets announced. Now, I've seen some people say, oh, that this happened. I saw this on Twitter. That, it happened because, the game needed the funding. It was going to get canceled or whatever unless Sony did this. I haven't seen that confirmed anywhere. I haven't seen Sony say that. I haven't seen the developers say that. I haven't seen anyone say that. So I don't know that that's actually true, but I have seen it pop up on Twitter. It could be true. I'm more inclined to think that it was maybe a situation where we know that this isn't like a huge developer, that a huge pedigree. They probably could have used the cash influx. I don't know if the game was going to get canceled. That seems a little, I don't know, it just doesn't seem likely to me that it was going to be canceled, but I'm sure they could always use more money. And I could see a situation where they maybe did approach Sony and they're like, hey, you guys want to partner? Because Sony's the publisher now, so I wonder if Sony owns this IP. I don't think that's even been officially announced. But I'm wondering if they own the IP now since they're the publisher. And I'm thinking probably yes. So buying that IP, making it an exclusive, that would lead to a nice cash influx for the dev, which is always going to be useful when you're not under a giant publisher. So I think that's probably what went down. It's probably very frustrating for Xbox fans if you wanted this game, but that's kind of what I'm feeling like probably happened. I don't know. It could have been the other way around. It could have been that the developer was fine with cash, but Sony saw this game and they thought it could be a hit and they think it looks cool. And they're like, hey, how about we give you a bunch of money and buy the IP and make this exclusive? That could have happened too. I would say no matter what, it reflects though that Sony sees something in this game, which I'm not surprised by because I think it's cool too. Like Sony's the straight up publisher now. So they invested one way or another. No matter what, they invested in this game in the studio. So they must feel like it's going to be pretty cool. I think it looks great. So it's definitely an interesting situation. Sucks for Xbox fans that don't have PlayStations that this game's not going to come to your platform now. But yeah, it's an interesting situation. It's not common. Definitely very rare. Going to go for 15 more minutes, guys. 15 more minutes and then I'm out. Ghost Tunnels. Kid-friendly titles is a pretty underrepresented market. Yes, it is. Absolutely. We've been preaching that on this channel for a long time. If Disney Dreamlight Valley, Disney Speedstorm does well, could more kid-friendly and Disney games get made? 1,000,000% Ghost Tunnels. 1,000,000. And you've even seen Phil Spencer say this for the last couple years. He said the same thing I was saying, which was that there's just not enough games for kids or families on these platforms. There's not. There's a ton on Switch. Switch has been way ahead of the curve on offering that. Of course, stuff for adults, but it's all ages, right? They have M-rated stuff. They've got E-rated stuff, like a huge variety and a lot of E-rated stuff, which is good for any age group. Sony and Microsoft are so heavy on M and T-rated games, you know, that there was like almost no E-rated content that's good for any age group. Ghost Tunnels, we're seeing Dreamlight Valley show very encouraging signs of being successful. And yeah, if Disney Speedstorm also does well, it clearly shows that there's a market there that's just waiting to be tapped. So I think so. Yeah, I think you'll see more. People got so drunk off of like, you know, Call of Duty and Assassin's Creed and seeing how these M-rated games and Grand Theft Auto, these M-rated games do billions and billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars. And that's always going to be more attractive to you than maybe doing an E-rated game that's not going to sell, you know, 20 million copies. It might sell 1 or 2 or 3 million copies. You know, you're always going to be trying to push for a weight, but these huge M-rated games are going to be, sure, absolutely. I'm not saying you don't make any of those, but could you get some, you know, steady hitters of some of these more E-rated games that are going to sell a couple million, you know, not 10 million, but a couple million, and give them lower budgets but still get them out the door? Yeah. So I think so, yeah. We got to see. This has to be a long-term success. Disney Speedstorm has to do well. But if these games do well, you will definitely see more. Ebo Romero's asking if I think God of War can get Game of the Year. I mean, again, it's possible. It has a steep competition in front of it with Elden Ring. If I had to make a bet right now, like right now I had to make the bet at the Game Awards, is it going to go to Elden Ring or is it going to go to God of War? I would actually still bet Elden Ring because that was such a cultural impact. So many people played that game. I mean, it's ridiculously enormous. It's going to get a lot of votes just because so many people will have played it and loved it. So I would still say Elden Ring is your definite frontrunner for Game of the Year, but God of War is going to give it a lot more competition now than I thought it originally was going to. So you never know. I think we just had a super chat hit. Let me hit that super chat. We did. We had 2 super chats. Joseki with a 2, and this is clearly sarcasm. RGG, Yakuza is not on Nintendo Switch because it's for kids, ... Yeah, that's silly. If they really said that, that's pretty ridiculous. There are a ton of adults that play on Switch. You know, like I mentioned, Switch has done an amazing job of hitting all age groups, right? That's why it sold so many consoles. It didn't sell 111 plus million units because it's only appealing to people that play M-rated games or only appealing to kids It's hitting every demographic. You don't get to those kinds of sales numbers. Literally one of the best selling consoles of all time by the time it's done. This thing is going to be in your, who knows? There's some people that think this still might hit PS2, but it's going to be in your top 3, in my opinion, no matter what. Best selling consoles of all time. So it's like, you don't hit those numbers unless you're hitting ginormous demographics. So I loved Yakuza Like a Dragon. I am now fully like in the Yakuza Like a Dragon. I want to play all these games. But if they really said, I didn't see it, but just like if they really said it's skipping Switch because it's for kids, come on now. That's silly. That's silly talk. Kellegrim with a 5. Thank you so much. Or no, not Kellegrim, Benji. Benji with a 5. Thank you so much, Benji. That's your second super chat, I think, of the chat, man. Hi, Benji. Tears of the Kingdom in May. No Pikmin 4 footage, usually early gen titles. No Mario, Prime 4, or DK. Is this Switch 2 launch window lineup? Dude, it's an interesting question. We keep having this debate. How close is the Switch successor or not? I'm seeing a lot of conspiracy theories about how, hey, they still showed very little of Zelda, even though we did get a date. Like, your actual in-game footage was like 10 seconds. I think it was a little longer than that, but it was like less than a minute. And Pikmin, they specifically went out of their way to say, we're not going to show you gameplay. Again, still no new Mario, no new Mario Kart, no Prime 4 update. Here's what I will say, Benji. I still really think new Switch is coming next year. I don't know that it's May. I really think it's going to be out by next holiday. I really think so. I really think by next holiday you're going to have Switch 2 on the market. By October, November 2023, I think there's Switch 2. Really think so. Really, really, really think so. Even with Switch still selling incredible, guys. I don't think it's going to be in March, right? It sounds like definitely nothing this fiscal year. I don't even know that it'll be May. By next holiday, I do think there's new Switch hardware on the market. I do think so. I do believe so. All right, Super Chats are cleared. We're coming down to the last 10 minutes. Thank you so much for those Super Chats, guys. We're down to the last 10 minutes. Danger Man, Benji, Nintendo and Sony have shown their hand. Will Microsoft show theirs with the presentation showing games releasing second half of 2023? I don't think there will be any big Xbox showcase until next year, but expect something at the Game Awards. I don't know what that will be. I'm very confident Microsoft's going to show something big at the Game Awards, though. Makes sense. They can get something in at the end of the year. And I believe Phil actually confirmed this kind of on accident before even E3 happened. I want to say, if I remember right, he was having a conversation with somebody on a stream, and he was talking about how, they planned so far in advance. And he was talking about how, they planned E3 like starting at the end of the year before. Like that's when they first started playing on it. And then I believe, if I remember right, that Phil said during that, he was like, yeah, and we're already thinking about the Game Awards in December. And this was like a long time ago. And so I think Phil kind of already showed his hand that they're going to have something there. I expect something big from Microsoft at the Game Awards. I think they'll probably have something big at the Game Awards maybe from now on. I think they really saw that announcing the Series X and Hellblade 2 generated crazy hype there. We know Game Awards gets giant viewership. I don't know if they'll have like a big show in these last few months, but I think you'll see definitely something very big at Game Awards. But probably not an actual showcase until next year. Venom Harness, Benji, apparently Team Asobi's next game is not an Astro Playroom sequel. It is instead a new IP. This is surprising. Don't you think they should have released a full-fledged sequel to Astro's Playroom since it's beloved? I would not actually have done Astro Playroom next. I would have done a sequel to Astro's, the original Astro on VR. I would think that their next game is a PSVR 2 title. I still think it is. Even if it's a new IP, I think their next game is for PSVR 2. So that would be my guess, Venom Harness. I mean, I'd love to see a Playroom sequel. I thought the game that comes installed on PS5, I think it's amazing. But Team Asobi is incredible at utilizing hardware. I still think they have some of the best utilizations of the DualSense I've ever seen. the original Astrobot is one of the best VR games PSVR ever got. They're very good and creative at utilizing new hardware. So I would say I don't know this from inside info, but I would very much guess their next game is a PlayStation VR 2 game. And I would assume that would be an Astro game. But if it's not, if it's a new IP, that is somewhat surprising to me. But that's cool. We had 2 super chats coming in here at the end as we get ready to wrap up. Hanato here with a 5. Thank you so much, Hanato. Very much appreciate that. Very much. Benji, would you bet the next Switch is fully backwards compatible? How about PSVR 2? The rumblings are that PSVR 2 is not. I do not have this confirmed, but that is the rumblings, is that PlayStation VR is not backwards compatible. Now, I suspect a lot of those games will get patches to make them PlayStation VR compatible too. That would be my guess if this is true. If these rumblings are true and it's not backwards compatible, I think a lot of the more popular ones would get patches, so they just work with the new one. But from the rumblings, out of the box, like if you just connect a PSVR 2, it sounds like it's not fully backwards compatible. These games would probably have to get individual patches to be playable. Don't know that, but that's some of the rumblings. The next Switch I would think has to be backwards compatible. I think there's also some rumblings even that's not, but I just can't see that. I mean, they've sold so many copies of these games, and people have built up such a library now on their Switch. You know, it wasn't like the transition, let's say, from Wii U to Switch, where it's like, let's be real, almost no one bought a Wii U, and so they bought almost no games. So it wasn't that big of a deal for Switch 2 to have 0 backwards compatibility with, you know, Wii or Wii U, because there just wasn't really a library there. With Switch, so many people have made digital purchases on the platform. So many people bought games for it. It'd be pretty bad if it's not. I'll be honest with you, it'll be pretty bad. I don't think it would kill Switch 2 outright, but it would be pretty bad. People would get pretty angry, I think. Especially all those digital games, right? So we'll see. I don't know. I would say Switch is more likely of the two. Of the two, I think Switch is more likely to be backwards compatible in PSVR 2, because it sounds pretty confident from some people it's not, unless something has changed recently. Reverse World with a 5 super chat. Very curious about the initiative's fate after Perfect Dark. This is the game I'm most worried about at Xbox. Especially if the game is well received. Could they merge it with an Activision Blizzard studio? I was having this conversation with actually Split End yesterday. And we were talking about like Microsoft and like the upcoming stuff. And the two that I'm most concerned of out of Microsoft right now, like if I just pointed to 2 games on the entire announced slate and was like, I'm not saying they're going to be bad. I'm just saying those are the 2 that I'm like, I don't know. It's Perfect Dark and Everwild. Those are the 2 where I'm like, man, I don't know. Those to me seem like the 2 games that are most in danger of being misses. Like I feel like pretty much everything else seems very, very good. I can tell you that the initiative, regardless of what Microsoft says right now, I can definitely tell you the initiative has had some very heavy growing pains. Now, it doesn't mean that they're not in a good spot now. I'm not telling you that. But I'm saying I know that the initiative was having some cultural issues early on, you know, as they figured out what kind of studio they were going to be. That's not crazy uncommon. It's a brand new studio built from the ground up. You have no built-in culture. So as you try and figure out what the culture and what the studio's like, you're going to run into some issues. So I know that early on, there was some problems at the initiative. I'm not saying like people were bad people or anything. It was just getting it all figured out was not easy. So we'll see how Perfect Dark is. Crystal Dynamics, I think, is a talented dev, and they're doing a lot of the work on this. Not all of it, but a lot of the work on it. The initiative's doing a lot too, to be clear, but Crystal Dynamics is doing a lot. Talented dev, despite how people might feel about new Tomb Raider. Hopefully that this game goes well. I am worried about it, if I'm being honest. That and Everwild are the 2 I'm concerned about. But we'll see. If it goes well, I don't think they'll get merged with an Activision studio. I think they'll just keep slowly growing the initiative. I don't know that the initiative will ever be a 500 or 600 person studio. But I think if it does well, they'll just keep slowly growing. And maybe they'll get to the point that the next Perfect Dark they can build completely by themselves if they decide to continue the franchise. Because Crystal Dynamics probably is not coming back. They're owned by Embracer now. And Embracer is going to want Crystal Dynamics making Embracer games. Unless, Microsoft pays them a crap load of money. Because this is now a studio they own. So they're going to want to be getting their own stuff out of this studio. So you're probably realistically going to need to get the initiative in a spot they can make the next Perfect Dark by themselves if it does well. All right, one or two more and I got to go. I apologize to anyone whose questions I cannot get to, but there's always so many questions in chat. You guys always ask so many good questions. So I'm going to pick out like one or two or three more and then I got to go. Is there any questions on Zelda? Very little questions on Zelda. I thought there'd be more. Joseki, since this is super quick, and I'll let Joseki get their shout out. Benji, let me brag for a bit. I told people they'd be surprised by Splatoon 3 sales before the pre-orders started to spike. You called it, Joseki. Yep, because I was a little worried, looking at the pre-orders. I wasn't worried it was going to be a bomb, but I was one of those people that was like, I thought pre-orders would be better, like you said, before they skyrocketed right towards the end. But yes, Joseki, everyone give Joseki's flowers. Called it. We're spot on. And the direct was perfect. Also, are you playing it? I own it. I just haven't been able to get to it yet because I was wrapping up The Last of Us Part 1. I am diving into Splatoon tonight. Tonight, I will be starting Splatoon 3. My first time ever playing a Splatoon game. So I'm pretty excited. Yeah, Mystic Ellie, great point here. Like I was saying, Tales of Symphonia Remaster announced for Xbox. You see more games from Japan on Xbox platforms than ever. Yes, this is kind of being missed because there are still Japanese games skipping the platform, right? We do know that. There definitely are still games doing it, but I've seen worse times, guys. The Xbox One gen was real bad. Like, Xbox is moving in a better direction of getting more Japanese support. Even like, these new, it appears they're calling Yakuza just Like a Dragon now. It seems to be that's the new name for the franchise, looking at the games they announced. Those are going to be on Xbox. Like I said, Square Enix still has stuff like DioField, Final Fantasy Crisis Core. We're seeing Persona come to it for the first time ever. So it is moving in a positive direction. There are still definitely games skipping the platform. Xbox fans really need to get behind these JRPGs if they want to see more. But it is moving slowly. It is getting better than it was. Xbox One was bad. There was like so few Japanese games on it. So it's improving. It is improving. Chris Jenkins, can Ronin hit its 5 million target easily? I don't know if you guys saw this, but it sounds like Koei Tecmo, I believe, is who's making it. Their expectation is that Ronin sells 5 million copies. Pretty high bar. It will have to sell better than Neo. So Neo and Neo 2, it's going to have to sell better than those games did. However, this isn't a Souls-like. This is an action RPG. So on one hand, they probably think that this can hit broader. It's more easily accessible because it's not a Souls-like game at all. It's, just a big action RPG. And it is going to be on PC. I think it could hit 5 million. Now, easily, I would say no unless it's really good. If it's really good, it could, yeah. I mean, between PC and PS5, if it's very, very good, I think it can get to that number. I would say easily is not a lock, though. Easily is not a lock. It needs to be very, very good. Because I said, neither Neo game, as far as I'm aware, hit 5 million individually. The franchise did, but I don't think Neo 1 or 2 by itself hit over 5 million. So it's going to have to do better than Neo. Which I think it will. I think it'll do better than Neo, if I'm being honest with you. One or two more. Danger Man says that Danger Man thinks Game Pass will go up in price when the first Call of Duty hits day one on Game Pass. You might be right. I could see that. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's impossible. Ubi, glad to see you back being healthy. Yeah, things are improving, Ubi. You know, the whole long COVID thing has sucked. I will tell you, I had a little bit of a relapse the last day or so. If anyone's never had long COVID, it's a bit of a weird thing. Like the last 3 or 4 days, I felt great. Honestly, I was like, it's over. I'm past it. And then late last night, all of a sudden the leg aches started to come back. And I told you, the leg muscle pains and fatigue have been the two main symptoms I've had of long COVID. I haven't really had much else. It's super leg aches, like I just ran 10 miles, and fatigue. And it comes and goes. It's real weird. And last few days have been great. But then last night I felt all of a sudden, I was like, oh, the legs are hurting. Here it comes. And then, woke up this morning, still had some leg cramps, still feeling some fatigue. It's weird. Those are the two symptoms. They're here. They go away, but they are reducing. With time, it is slowly coming down. So the end is in sight, but I still might kind of deal with it for a few more weeks off and on. But yeah, long COVID's weird. Real weird. It's a real weird thing. Luckily, I've avoided some of the really bad symptoms. Like some people have crazy brain fog, can't remember anything. And luckily, I haven't had that. It's really muscle aches, particularly in my legs, and fatigue. One or two more. Anthony Johnson, I'm slightly convinced that the Japanese government must have just started buying Splatoon 3 for schools or something because of how insane that number is. It is. It's mind-blowing. JCat, remember when you said you couldn't see the hype for Splatoon 3, Benji? Well, I never said there was no hype for it. That definitely is not true. I just said it wasn't at the level that I was kind of expecting, but I did also change my mind, a week before launch. Actually, 2 weeks is when I started seeing it. But I wasn't the only one. There was a lot of people that whenever they were seeing those pre-order charts and stuff were like, But I never thought it was going to bomb. But it is way higher than even I expected. Danny saying, hi there, man. Came from Twitter to say have a great day. You have a great day, Danny. Thank you so much. Dangerman MPD next month will be interesting. From what I can see, it seems like PlayStation is going to outsell Xbox quite a bit now in the US for the next few months. Might be wrong, but I don't know, guys. Xbox had a really great start of the year in the US and NPD, but I feel like it's still going to do well. But I think that its days of consistently outselling PS5 and NPD like we saw for the first half of the year are probably over. At least until the Xbox games start hitting. We'll see, though. Sony has to keep up with the shipments, but I'm kind of feeling like, we saw July was PlayStation ahead of Xbox. I think August, PlayStation was ahead of Xbox. Early September is looking to me like PlayStation's ahead of Xbox. So Xbox needs those games to start coming out. We'll see, though. This isn't a lock, but it looks like it might be back to Sony ahead for these months. All right, I think we're about there. There's a lot of great stuff, but I don't know if there was a single question about Zelda. That surprises me. Figured there'd be some people asking how I thought Zelda was going to do, but I don't see nothing on Zelda. All right. Well, I think I'm going to bounce, guys. I think I'm going to leave. Since there's no Zelda, Zelda's going to be big, right? I guess there's just not too much to talk about since they showed almost nothing, but it'll be giant. One thing I'm keeping my eye on in the US is if it's the biggest Nintendo launch of all time in the US. Keep your eyes on that. Might happen. US loves Zelda. So it's got some big competition. We saw some crazy stuff out of Animal Crossing in the United States and stuff, but the thing I got my eye on, can Tears of the Kingdom be the biggest Nintendo launch of all time in the US. Keep in mind, guys, here in the United States, Breath of the Wild at launch sold more copies of the game than Nintendo actually sold Switch consoles this launch month. That's how much the US loves Zelda. Everywhere loves Zelda. Zelda does good in Europe, Zelda does good in Japan, but America loves Zelda. So I'm going to keep my eye on that. I'm not going to say it's a lock. There's some crazy Pokemon launches, some crazy Animal Crossing launches, but the thing I want to watch, can Tears of the Kingdom set a new Nintendo record in the United States? Okay, guys, thanks. Have a great day. Thanks for showing up to the chat. Like the video if you haven't already. Helps the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to my channel if you're not already. We do at least one of these chats every single week, except for whenever I'm having life issues, but hopefully no life issues coming up. The last month has been off and on. I think things are headed in the right direction, but we'll see. Subscribe if you haven't already. Stay safe. Play some games. If you follow me on Twitter, I'll see you here real soon. I'll be on Twitter tweeting today. If you're not following me on Twitter, I'll see you here on YouTube next week for the chat. Possibly on Friday if we get some big news out of Xbox at TGS. I'm not expecting any big Xbox news, I'll be honest with you. They have a stream coming up for Tokyo Game Show. It's like 50 minutes. If there's some surprising announcements there, maybe we will. If some other big news breaks in the next day or two, maybe we'll do one on Friday. But at the very least, we got one in today. Thanks, guys. Love y'all. Y'all are amazing. I will catch you later. Peace. Bye. Thanks for coming out to the stream, guys. I'm sorry to the questions I missed, okay?